Okay guys, welcome back sa panibagong vlog. Once again, this is Midnight and this time around, we will be talking about MPL Philippines versus MPL Indonesia meta. Now, quick disclaimer lang, majority of this video will be in English so that we can accommodate for the Indonesian viewers that we have dahil interesado din naman sila syempre malaman kung ano yung pinakaiba ng Indonesian meta versus Philippine meta. Now, the discussion will be talking about the difference of the playstyle between the two countries and the two regions. Now, Indonesia versus Philippines, the question is, ang lagi mga tanong ng mga tao is ano ba ang sino ba mas malakas na meta? Who's currently the stronger meta compared between the two? Now, the answer is this. Philippines versus Indonesia, the stronger region is we don't know yet. Okay? Why? Because Philippines hasn't played yet on their playoffs. MPL Indonesia, they've already played their MPL playoffs, MPL MY. Pero si Philippines, wala pa. We haven't seen the teams compete yet in MPL Season 9. So we don't know kung nag-upgrade ba yung performance sila or if they improved or if they have a new identity, a new flavor on the meta. So hindi pa natin talaga masukat kung ano ba yung current strength level ng Philippines. Bakit importante pag-usapan to? Because MSC is nearing and actually pati yung SEA Games. Now, the topic has been discussed already na yung patch ay magbabago. So it doesn't really matter if yung meta ngayon ay kung yung meta ngayon ay mas malakas for the Philippines or if it's stronger in Indonesia. But the thing is, it's important for us to discuss currently kung sino ba yung mas malakas talaga para ma-settle na natin. Pero again, the answer is wala pa kasi hindi pa natin nakikita yung Pilipinas. And again, it doesn't even matter if magbago lahat ng meta pagdating ng SEA Games at MSC, pero it's a topic for discussion. So, to start things off, let's start with MPL Indonesia because we have seen MPL Indonesia play out their MPL Season 9 playoffs. Now, the thing about Indonesia is for the longest time, they have been the country to look up to when it comes to objective gaming. Actually, for the most part, yung mga teams na nasalihan ko na, yung mga teams na kakilala ko, the teams that I know, have really looked up to Indonesia to discipline their players, to discipline their playstyle, to discipline their team. The thing is, sila yung parang very controlled pagdating sa mga objectives. They were the ones who were really keen on taking objectives over team fights. And why is it so important to point that out? Kasi for this season, it has changed. Indonesia has shifted their play style to to a more skirmish-oriented gameplay. I'm not saying that they don't take objectives that well, pero para silang to have a comparison, in PH, they're like Smart Omega when they were Execration before. It's basically chaos and order. Chaos because chaotic team fights, yung randomly may nangyayari sa mapa. And then order because if they win team fights, they take objectives. Naturally, nagtatranslate naman yun for this team. So, actually, feeling ko kaya din nasabi ni Doggy na si Smart Omega yung kaya lumaban sa Indo kasi for the most part, si Smart Omega yung ganito maglaro ever since. So, kabisado nila yung laruan ng Indonesia and I do think that Smart Omega is the best when it comes to that chaotic playstyle kasi they were the first ones to really stick with it. Kasi most teams in the Philippines, they have tried to develop more tactical approach, more clinical and more disciplined gameplay. Like for example, RSG and DNC, the way they play, sama na natin si Blacklist, the way they play is that they don't really take fights if it's unnecessary and they only take team fights when it's around objectives. So si Indonesia, previously, they played like that. But since the meta has shifted towards more fighter and tanks oriented heroes, I feel like Indonesia, for the most part, we're just constantly fighting around everything. It's it's not even selective. Like hindi siya laging nasa objective. May mga random things na nangyayari sa mapa, may biglang namamatay, and that's because the meta allows it. Kasi again, ang daming fighters, puro fighters yung meta natin ngayon. For the most part, they can really fight. Kasi the thing is, In MOBA, we have this thing called power spike, and we also have a power dump. Power spike is basically when you are stronger because of this, whatever item, battle spell, timings, skill cooldown, and then there's also the power dump. Now, power dump is basically the opposite of the power spike. It's the time where you are weak because you've exhausted everything that has made you stronger. So that's the power dump. So if you think about it, power dumps are basically the moment where your hero is weak. But if you look at the heroes that are currently in the meta, they don't really have that huge of a power spike and power dump. They're just really, really strong, like the Baksha, the Hildas, the Diroths, you know. So it adds to the it adds to the reason why this gameplay works for Indonesia. Like for example, if you watch RRQ and Onyx Indonesia's grand finals, there's a lot of skirmishing going on. Mostly it's around objectives, but there's also around nothing. Like they just fight for the sake of it. Because again, these heroes, they want to fight. They don't really want to farm. They don't really want to, unless you have a Sicilian lineup or a carry lineup. Pero again, sa Indonesia, they don't really farm that much compared to Philippines, wherein if both of the teams know that it's not their time, both of them are gonna farm. They're just gonna wait. They're just gonna wait for the next objective, their next timing. So again, nagkaroon ng shift. And interesting to kasi Philippines, okay, MPLPH. Previously looked up to Indonesia again, as I mentioned earlier, when it comes to discipline gaming. So we've adapted to that, and I think we've mastered that with Blacklist, RSG, TNC, Onyx, coming on board with that kind of gameplay. And then suddenly you see Indonesia shift their playstyle. So there's this two contrasting playstyle, which is chaotic and then order, disciplined and strategic gameplay from the Philippines. So Indonesia, I would say, they haven't mastered yet, or they haven't refined yet their chaotic gameplay, because this is the type of gameplay personally that I don't like, because Philippines used to play that way, but we've shifted to the more objective centric gameplay. But Indonesia is shifting away. So it's interesting because the dynamic between the two countries is literally the polar opposites of each other. So Indonesia, I'm not saying that it's bad for them. Again, it's because the meta allows it. And the thing about Indonesia is that they don't do excessive things like looking for 1v1s or trying to take down heroes that don't necessarily have to be taken down. So they still have their discipline intact with their gameplay, but again, they're more the downside of having this kind of gameplay is that you're more easily punished by the opposing team. Like if you go to PH, Mobile has experience of this. If you go to PH, you get easily punished by teams like, RSG, TNC, even Onyx, actually even Smart Omega. So you get easily punished. So that's the thing about Indonesia's gameplay. It's not even about the draft. It's not even about the heroes that they pick. Although sometimes it's just weird that they just let go of Valentina for some reason. But again, the difference comes down to the playstyle. And Philippines has adapted a more Indonesia how to say this, vibe with their gameplay because of the discipline and the focus on objectives. But Indonesia shifted away from that. So we have two polar opposites of each other, which is really, really interesting because Indonesia was the first region to move like that. And Philippines looked up to Indonesia, and then we took over. Philippines became the strongest region, and now Indonesia is going back to the way Philippines used to play. So for the most part, I would say that it's slightly disadvantageous for Indonesia. But the thing is, again, if you watch the grand finals, it looked like they were really comfortable with that kind of gameplay, and most teams would not expect that kind of pacing, because when you watch MPL ID, it's like there's no breathing room. For the Philippines, it's like watching Echo versus Onyx all over again, because sa mga nanonood dyan, alam niyo yung nangyari doon, no? Hindi na tayo naiintindihan ng mga Indonesians. Echo versus Onyx with number 4, grabe, walang hingahan. So, feeling ko lamang naman tayo ng konti doon. But then again, if you watch RRQ play, it's really, really scary because there's no breathing room and they take everything that they can. And again, it's not because it's the way to play, but because the meta allows it. Again, previously it's not as effective, but now the meta shifted. It's quite effective because you really do want to fight with the heroes that are present on the current hero meta pool, like the Masha, the Bakshias, the Diros, the Esmeraldas. Again, tank heroes. We even have Akai junglers, Hylos junglers. So again, it all boils down to the ideology of the team, but that is the identity of MPL ID right now. A lot of team fights, chaotic gameplay, fights everywhere. I mean, not everywhere, but fights for the most part, for the majority of the game. But Philippines, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a disciplined country. We focus on objectives a lot. We don't fight when it's not our timings, and it's not as easily punished as compared to Indonesia's gameplay. Now, again, to have an answer, which country has the better meta? Again, we don't have any answer yet because we are yet to see Philippines play their meta. We don't know if they're gonna introduce new heroes. We don't know if they'll have new rotations or new gameplays in play, or new strategies at play. But I would say Indonesia looks really scary right now because of how effective RRQ and Onyx plays. Even though Onyx misplayed a lot in the grand finals, but again, it's because of the effect of RRQ playing that way, playing that pace. So it's not because Onyx is a team that makes a lot of mistakes. Most of the mistakes that they made, it's because of RRQ. So again, they look really scary right now. But my personal view in this, my personal take on PH versus Indonesia, I do think that Philippines is still the better country. Again, because of the reason that we came from that. This is what we were used to. Like MPL Indonesia is traversing uncharted territories for their gameplay, but Philippines used to be chaotic. Tayo yung balasubos maglaro, tayo yung bardagulan, and I feel like we have a sort of experience and veterancy on that area, such that when we face Indonesian teams, Philippine teams will think like, bakit ganito maglaro to, parang ang dumi. So in translation, for the foreign viewers, Philippine teams will think of that kind of gameplay, where of the gameplay of Indonesia, in a way that, how do you say this? There's no direct translation. Basically, it's not clean. So again, if you have a Filipino team, if you have an MPL PH team, look at MPL ID games. They're gonna say that it's not clean. There's a lot of unnecessary fights, and there's a lot of things going on that shouldn't happen. So I kind of feel like, again, it's gonna be advantageous for the Filipino teams when it comes down to the pacing of the game. Because again, objectives is still what wins you the games, and I do feel like the Philippines is the superior country when it comes to fighting around objectives and setting up your timings. So that is it, guys. Maraming salamat sa mga nanood. Mabilis na discussion lang. Actually, hindi mabilis, 30 minutes lang. Yung mga dugo natin dito ay nagduduguan na dahil puro tayo English, pero kailangan din natin i-accommodate yung mga foreign viewers natin. So again, maraming salamat sa panonood. Thank you so much for watching. For the foreign viewers out there, thank you so much. And actually, I just want to give huge shout outs to the foreign viewers out there who keeps on commenting that I add English subtitles to my videos, because it's really something that I can be happy with, because people from other countries are watching my videos, so that's really something that I deeply appreciate. So again, thank you so much. So again, guys, maraming salamat. Ilang beses na ako pasalamat. Ito na, tapusin natin to. Huwag niyo makalimutan mag-subscribe sa aking YouTube channel, and also follow niyo na ako sa aking mga social media accounts at MDNYT97. That's for Facebook, Twitter, IG, and TikTok. Once again, this has been Midnight, and see you sa mga next na videos natin, and of course sa MPL Season 9 playoffs bukas. Maraming salamat, guys. Bye-bye.